it's Cindy. Today we're going to make a graduation gown card. We're going to start with a piece of Call Me Clover cardstock. This is 4 1/4 by 11, and a piece of petaled pink. This is 4 by 5 1/4. I'm going to use my detailed trio punch to use the corner rounder portion, and I will round the top 2 corners of each of these cardstocks. So it's going to look like this. So now our corners have been rounded, and it's time to punch the top folded part of the card. So I'm going to use my tailored tag punch. I'm going to place it about halfway on there, like so, and then I'm going to go ahead and punch that out. So now with that one punch, we've formed the collar of our gown. This piece here is going to go on the inside, so we want to be careful with where we place it. We want to watch that we don't put any adhesive in that area where it might show in the back of the card. So I'm just going to put the glue about 1/4 of the way down and spread it all the way to the bottom of this inside piece. Then you'll just flip it over and press it on the inside of the card. Okay, so now that's done. So the next step is going to be to take 2 pieces of cardstock. They measure 1/4 inch by 5 1/2. I'm going to grab my silicone mat and then lay this down, and we're going to put some adhesive. Now, for this sake of the video, I'm using my snail adhesive, but you could use liquid glue, and I'm only putting it about 3/4 of the way down on that strip. And then because we're going to start it at the midpoint of where we've punched it out, the cardstock is going to hang over the bottom just a tiny little bit. So that's why we don't want any adhesive there, because we're going to just snip that part right off. All right, now for the collar, I want to take this second little 1/4 inch strip, and I just want to eyeball it and lay it right against the edge of the card, right to the center, and then I'm just going to make a snip on a diagonal, and then I'll just line these 2 pieces up together, and then I will match them up so that we will have the equal amount of cardstock to make the opposite side of the collar. And then I'm going to make sure I have it even, and then I'll just snip that off. So now we have the 2 collar pieces. So I'm just going to take and kind of line these up to see that they're going to fit, that I don't need to make any more adjustments with my paper snips. And now that I can see that looks like it's going to line up well, I'm just going to simply turn these over, add my adhesive to the back, and then I'll just place these right back there at the top of that opening, and then these pieces will form a nice collar to the gown. So this card was made for a graduate of the University of Hawaii, and one of the big traditions here in Hawaii is the giving of flower leis. So I wanted to find a way to add leis to the front of this graduation gown. So it just so happens that we have the perfect brand new set. It's called Forever Fern. It comes with these gorgeous images that have matching dies, but within the die set there's also some extra dies to create even more really fabulous leaves and flowers. Now these dies are called the Forever Flourishing Dies, and of course you can buy them with the stamp set as a bundle. So now for this first one here, I use Mossy Meadow cardstock, and I die cut 4 of those pieces like that. The second one here, I used my Whisper White cardstock, and I did 4 of those. And then this third piece here, I did with the Pumpkin Pie cardstock. And for this one, I'm going to go ahead and cut it apart into tiny little pieces. So this lei will be the one that's the most time consuming, because we need to cut it up, and then I adhered it onto a roll of glue dots. Okay, so I'm going to use snail. Again, I'm only using the snail because it's a little bit quicker for the video. Of course, the snail will leave some extra adhesive where I don't want it, so I have my adhesive remover handy for when I need it. So I'm going to go ahead and put these back to back. These go on very simply, and this is what reminds me of a maili lei. So I'm going to just take and do the opposite direction on the other side so that the lei just looks like it's hanging open on both sides of the neckline, like so. Okay, so that one goes on really simply. The next lei, however, is a little bit more time consuming. So this lei I die cut 2 times using the die and some pumpkin pie cardstock. And then once I die cut it, as you saw, I took my paper snips and I cut the leaves all off. And so we have these just little tiny petals, and they're like in small and medium pieces. So I'm just alternating the pieces, and I'm gluing them on with glue dots all the way down on both sides of the neckline. And this is what reminds me of a lantern ilima, but I've also made this card using using a different color cardstock to make it look like an orchid lei, or to make it look like any type of a colorful lei. So, but I just love the Lantern y Lima, which are orange, and so that's why I chose to do orange for this particular one. And so I'm going to just go ahead and grab the rest of these and just make sure that it's even on both sides. So I just need a couple more flowers. I'm going to cut another one here, and then we'll be all finished with that. Perfect. Now these last ones remind me of a pikake lei, and these are very easy to put on, just like the Miley lei was. And so we're just going to put our adhesive on here and then kind of put them back to back, and then we'll do the exact same thing on the opposite side. And you'll notice that, remember that because I am using snail, I have a little bit of excess glue in places where I don't want it. So, but I just left it there. I didn't clean it up because I can clean it up now at the end, because a lot of that got covered up by putting all these leis on top of the gown. So our card is almost done. Now we're going to add a sentiment to the bottom here. So I'm going to use a piece of Whisper White cardstock. This is 1 inch by 4 inches. I'm going to slide it into a brand new punch called Lovely Lables Pick-a-Punch. And then I'm going to flip it around and slide it into the punch again. And I'm going to punch out the other side. And you'll see that it makes a nice decorative edge on each side of this little white strip. So now we have a nice little tag. So now we're going to stamp our tag. So let me grab my Memento ink pad. And then for the stamp, we're going to use this word congratulations. Now this comes from the Peaceful Moment stamp set. It has a lot of really great sentiments in it. And then I'm going to ink up my stamp and then stamp it right in the center of this little tag that we just punched out. The next step will be to adhere this to the front of the card. So we're going to use dimensionals. So let me grab a couple of those, and I'll place the dimensionals on the back of this little tag, and then I'll peel off the backing. And then I'm going to place this right onto the front of the card at the bottom, just like so. Okay, so the final embellishment, I'm going to grab one of our Gilded Gems. I'm going to take a medium-sized one, and then I'm just going to place that so it looks like a little button at the top of the gown. It just adds a little bit of shimmer and shine to it as well. So I wanted to show you this card in another color. I did one here in Night of Navy, and I changed that flower to Gorgeous Grape, so it maybe looks like an orchid lei. But let's say leis aren't your thing. Here's another adaptation of this card where I just made some gold cords. And how I did that is I just took that little 1/2 inch strip, and then I just used my snips, and I just cut some little pieces at the bottom of the cardstock. And then using my fingers, I just kind of broke the fibers a little bit and spread it out carefully so I don't tear it. And then just kind of spread them apart a little bit, and it'll look like a little tassel at the end of your cardstock. And so that's how I did those gold cords there. Well, I hope that you enjoyed learning how to make this card. It was sure fun sharing it with you. If you'd like to continue watching my videos, please be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until we stamp again, aloha!